Hello and lovers, how the devil are you today? Good to see ya. Today I will be bass reviewing Doolittle by the Pixies. Dissecting the works of Kim Deal herself. Last week I did Mother's Milk by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Click there to check that out. Very interesting. Now this is just my opinion. It doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. It's just my opinion. But I'd really like to hear your opinion in the comments below. Okay, one last thing. If you want to learn any Kim Deal bass lines, Hey is there, Caribou is there, and Cannonball by the Breeders, which is Kim Deal's other band, is there. Okay, onto the album, and where do I start with this one? The Pixies' influence is massive. Really good music from the 90s onwards. Everybody cited the Pixies as an influence. And there's a reason for that. The Pixies were very, they were groundbreaking in many, many ways. And their influence, especially on like indie music at the time and definitely grunge, was massive. I mean, if you take Nirvana for example, Chris and Kurt from Nirvana just said we're a Pixies rip-off band, and in many ways they are. But it's refreshing, and was refreshing that they were so honest about that. I think if Nirvana said like, yeah, we're completely original, no one's heard anything like us before, people wouldn't have kind of like respected them as much. But because they did sound a lot like the Pixies. And there's reasons for that, especially that kind of like quiet to loud dynamic, which the Pixies are so well known for. So you've got this kind of like quiet chorus going on, quiet verse going on. People weren't really doing this back then. They're cited as one of the first people to do this. I'm not entirely sure if that's true or not, but if it is, that's massive. That's a massive milestone in music. So you've got like quiet verses and then loud choruses, quiet verses, loud choruses. And the best example of that is the way that the bass just chugs along. Kim Deal's playing the bass, chugging along in the background. Frank Black, the other guitarist, forgot his name. They're not doing anything at all. Frank's singing over, okay, and you've just got the bass and the vocal going. And then in the chorus, everybody comes in again. That's what Nirvana are so well known for, and that was from the Pixies. So Nirvana being the example again, they took that kind of like just ethos and ethic with the whole like kind of like punk sentimentality on top of it. And they turned it into a monster, and the Pixies kind of got left behind. They have always been quite cultish, haven't they? And they've always been in the background, but they never really belonged to any scene. They weren't actually part of the grunge Seattle scene. They weren't part of any other indie scenes that were going on at the time, or rock or metal or anything. Pixies have just been like an oddity, really, just sitting there by themselves. So the first song on the album is Debaser, and that's a song that I could never ever get bored of listening to. It's just it's a perfect song almost. And how Kim plays in this is a reflection of how she plays on the rest of the album. Okay, so she has that kind of like punchy, like popping sound which is coming out. It's not too muddy, it's not back in the background, it's not too cloudy, it's not too warm, it's not too round, it's punchy. And the way she gets that, she plays a P bass on that album, I believe. And obviously to get a bit of punch and gain out of your bass, use one of these, use a plectrum, and that's how she does it. Using the P bass, put the tone up a little bit, get a little bit of treble out of it, and getting that kind of punchiness. And just playing really simple, just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what you'll notice with Kim is she doesn't do any fills. This is their whole punk sentimentality thing again. Even with the Pixies music, there's no really cocky stuff. The songs are short and snappy, like punk songs. She plays with a plectrum. There's no fills. There's no need to do anything cocky. There's just, I'm going to sit in the background and do my job as a bass player with an amazing tone. Okay, and that's what she does, and she does that absolutely perfectly. But there's a genius here. And I think it's probably a subconscious genius. I'm not entirely sure if she consciously thought I'm going to be this type of bass player, but I think that her ear is so good, and she heard the music and she was writing the music with the Pixies, and she just sat back and went, I'm going to allow space. I'm going to allow a ton of space, alright? So in just playing a real simple bass line. There's nothing wrong with these bass lines, by the way. She's doing the right thing as a bass player. She's maintaining the low ends. She's maintaining the rhythmic foundation, that being she's playing in time. She's maintaining a harmonic foundation. She's playing the right notes. So people can argue and say, oh, you know, she's a boring bass player because she doesn't do anything. Like, you know, elaborate. And in that, I think that they're completely missing the point. That being, she'll sit back, and what she offers is space. Tons and tons of space. And what does space do? Space gives other things an opportunity to breathe, alright? If she was to play too busily in the verses and the chorus, it would be too tangled. The Pixies wouldn't be the Pixies without those bass lines. It's as simple as that. And we can all learn from Kim Deal, and she's one of my major influences. And sometimes when I'm playing in my band, that there is one of my band's bass lines. It could be a Pixies bass line, couldn't it? Dun 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 dun. Because sometimes you've just got to pull back and shut up. Yeah, you can just do your role as a bass player. Let everything else around you breathe a little bit. There will be spaces where you can play a little bit more, and there will be musical genres and pieces of music where you can play more. But if you're going to be playing in like a kind of like, you know, a rock band or a grunge band, then this way of playing bass is actually a really good way of playing bass. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, people say it's too simple. There should be more, and I just completely disagree with that. Why should there be more? It's perfect, you know. It's absolutely perfect. So the chorus, so the verse to Debasa, does it sound familiar to you? Does it sound familiar? Yeah, because if you listen really, really carefully, it sounds very much like Teen Spirit, doesn't it? Sorry, I keep on using Nirvana as an example, but they are the perfect example because those two bands are so kind of entwined. And the rest of the album goes on like Debasa, really. She plays those nice chunky bass lines, she plays simply, she doesn't do any fills, doesn't do anything too cocky. In fact, the band don't do anything too cocky. I think the most elaborate player is probably the drummer, which again comes from the bass, the fact that the engine, the bass player, is not doing anything, so the drummer gets to be a little bit more expressive and not filling up the sound too much. The rest of the album goes on like that. There's no middle eights, bridges, things like that. Again, they're really, really short songs. I think that Frank Black said that you know, one of his biggest influences was Buddy Holly, and you know, just short, snappy songs, and that's what he wanted, and that's what they do. So I love every song on the album, apart from La La I Love You. I think that's a bit of a novelty, and it gets boring after a while. The tone on Dead, especially, is brilliant, and it's a little bit more different to the rest of the tone. And that brings me on to the songs on the latter half of the album, which is weird. It's typically Pixies in the sense of, I think that Hey and Gouge Away should have been near the beginning somewhere because they are such powerful and great songs. Hold on, before I go on to them, number 13, Baby. Gives me an example to use another band as an example. Right, you know the end where the bass is just going, chugging along, and the guitar it's got tons of space to be expressive, and he's just doing solos and stuff. That end is so much like the end of Beetlebum by Blur, it hurts. Not chordally, not note-wise, but musically, and kind of like musically, ethically, it's the same thing really. Nice fly away. I've had like spiritual experiences to the end of that song. And that's just going on, and the chord structure is so addictive and great, and the bass is just sitting there with the drums chugging in the background, and it's building. It's just an amazing thing. So sorry, going back onto Hey. Oh, man, Hey. Again, it's the tone, and that bass line, it's just fueling the whole thing. It's simple, but it's so dynamic, and it's just a lovely piece of music. And again, going back to influences, listen to Lithium by Nirvana. Very, very similar, right? Very, very similar. It's the tone. It comes down to the tone again. And then after that is Gouge Away, and it's just that punchy, driving, moving bass which Kim Deal is so famous for. It's not just about her ear as being a bass player, I don't think. It's also... It's just Kim herself. It's her spirit, and it's her soul, and it's her personality, and it's her backing vocals and how she sings those backing vocals. You know, you see Kim Deal on stage, and it's Kim Deal, man. You know, she does that kind of like sway thing, doesn't she? And she's such an important part of the Pixies. And the Pixies were touring in this country recently. I didn't want to go see them because to me, Pixies aren't Pixies without Kim. That might sound a bit immature of me, but as a bass player as well, it's kind of important for me for her to be there because, you know, such an influence. So in a nutshell, to me, Kim Deal is a genius. Tonally, it's brilliant. The simplicity of what she plays, which allows the space for the other members to do what they do, and just is a brilliant reflection of their simple but powerful songs. It wouldn't be the same if more was done in those bass lines. It wouldn't be the Pixies if there was more stuff going on, more playing going on, because that kind of completely misses the point of what the Pixies are. Anyway, my friends, I hope you enjoyed that in some way. Tell me your opinion below if you want me to review, bass review any other bands, then give me a shout there as well. Thank you for watching.